Hello, my nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. I wanted to make you a homework helper in case you're struggling with this whole zero math trick. It's a trick. It really is brilliant and it cuts down on our work, the zero math trick. So we do want to use this as often as possible. It comes in handy rather than having to do the full algorithm to solve for something. If it ends in zeros, it's likely you can use the math trick. So let's look at it. Math is all about patterns. What pattern do you see here? Well, 1 times 45 is 45. 10 times 45 is 450. 100 times 45, 4,500. So it looks to me, if I'm looking at patterns, what I would notice or identify here is that if there's one zero in the multiplier, then our answer has 1 0. If there's 2 zeros here in 100, then our answer has 2 zeros. And that is absolutely correct in terms of solving for this 100, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 1 million even zero math trick. Okay, so let's look at that. Yeah, it's that easy, friends. It's that easy. Say what? Okay, so if I had 29 times 10, if I'm focused on the trick of it, all I do is move the zero to the side, and then I would have 29 times 1, which is 29, and add the zero back to my answer, 290. Okay, so the zero math trick is simply setting the zeros aside and adding the exact number of zeros that was there to begin with into your answer. We do need to look at why that works. So on dry erase board, 365 times 100. Let's take a peek together, shall we? Let me open my dry erase board. And here we go. If I had 365 times 100, what I could do, just if I'm looking at the math trick of it, is say, hey, I'm going to hang on to those zeros and add them in at the end. And then I would do 365 times 1 without having to think too hard. I know that's 365. And then what I would need to do is account for how many zeros, 1, 2 zeros, and add those in at the end. Shazam, there is my answer. The only thing left to do is account for the comma. I know I go 1 digit, 2 digit, 3 digit, comma, and so my answer is 36,500. Now, if I were to actually do that algorithm, that would look something like this, 365 times 100. And it's a lot of work because I see that there's 3-digit multiplier on the bottom. That would mean I'd have 1 answer, 2 answer, 3 answer, add those all together, and then have my final answer. Why do all that work when I am multiplying by a number that ends in zeros? Because I can use distributive property and it's a math trick. Yes, but let's look at what it is we're doing. When I'm taking away, let's see, when I'm taking away these zeros to be added in later, I see that's 3 zeros plus 1 more digit. So without questioning, I know that that has me in the thousandths place. Now with 1, it's a little bit trickier to understand what's happening, but stay with me. So basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, there is 1,000 there. I'm going to save those zeros and multiply by 1,000 at the end. Then, therefore, I can cross them off just right here. And I know that 27 times 1 gives me 27. And if I'm doing the math trick, I go 1, 2, 3 zeros, add them to my answer. Okay. Now, what I'm actually doing is I'm saving those zeros for later, and I'm multiplying by 1,000. So I'm going to touch on that again in my next example. When the fact that it's a 1,100, it might not be as clear. So let's come back to that. And meanwhile, go back to my presentation. And in class, we then talked about this. Let's see, get you to the right screen there. It takes a minute. Okay. Still loading. And there we go. Hallelujah. Okay, so we did solve for that. Zero math trick makes it easy. Now here's the thing. What if I am multiplying by a 30, a 500, or 2,000? Can I still use the math trick? The answer is yes, you can. If it ends in a zero, meaning it's part of a 10, a 100, a 1,000, then you can use the zero math trick. I want to explain why that would actually work. So in this case, if we had 42 times 300, what I could do if I'm just doing the trick of it is I would say, whoops, I went a little too fast. I would say 42 times 3 and set those zeros aside. We'll come back to them, I promise. So 42 times 3 equals 126. Now, because there were two zeros in my original problem to solve, I would need to add those zeros back in. When I add them back in, I get 12,600, and you simply are just adding those same two zeros after you've done the multiplication. So we kind of need to talk about why that would work. Let me explain. Okay, so going back to my dry erase board here. If I had 233 times 4,000, aha, I'm dealing with thousands, right? What I can think of doing is I've got 10, 20, 30, and that digit, I can put those aside. And that's actually representative of 1,000 because this goes up to the thousands place, right? So I'm going to put that aside to multiply later and cross that off. Now I have 233 multiplied by 4. And again, multiplication going horizontally never works. So always set up your problem going vertically. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry my 1 that represents the 10. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 1, 13. Carrying my 1 that represents the 10. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 gives me 9. So now I have 932. Well, my last step is to add back in those zeros if I'm doing the math trick. To understand the math of it, what I did was simply take away the 1,000 and multiply the entire 233 by 4. The 4 was representative of the 1,000, right? Or of the thousands, 4,000. So I took away the 1,000. Now I want to add back in the zeros. So what I would actually be doing is 932 times 1,000. And with my zero math trick, I know that 932 times 1, oh, there goes my lights. I can't even make it after school without my lights going off. Dance club all the time. So then I would have 932, because 932 times 1, add 1, 2, 3 zeros, and then go back and add my comma. Okay? So I'm hoping that makes some sense. Now, there was a couple sheets that you had for homework that I do want to touch on. And this is what your homework looked like, or some of the pages for your homework tonight. What I want you to identify is that we're doing the same thing, essentially. It's just asking you to fill in what's missing. So we know that we're going to do 7 times the 3. We're going to save those 3 zeros, which again is actually 1,000, and we'll multiply those later. So then down on the lines, it would be 7 times 3 times 1,000. We would still need to multiply by 1,000 at the end. We're not there yet, so then we would do 7 times 3 gives me 21 times 1,000. And now we have 21 times that 1 if we're doing our zero math trick. 21 times 1 is 21. And then we added 1, 2, 3 zeros. So it's just having you break it up so you're looking at it and kind of decomposing the number. But I thought that might be kind of confusing. Another thing that is on your homework, let's try this one here. Looks something like this. And again, it's got a blank. So it says blank times 8 equals 3,200. So how can we make that equation correct? Well, we know that multiplication and division are weird cousins, right? There's our brain-based link. We can use one to solve for the other. And we did this a lot in the last chapter. So if we have 3,200, then we know that 8 times question mark times something will equal 3,200. We also know that 3,200 divided by 8 will equal what belongs in that question mark. So what we can do next is kind of think of what we know about our multiplication facts. And if one of these, 8 times something, is going to equal 3,200 or 3,200, then I can take those zeros off and know that I have to add them in later. And I can then say, instead, 32 divided by 8 is going to equal something. Or I can play that around and say 8 times something is going to equal 32. So the best way to solve for this is to go through my multiples of 8, right? 8, 16. Good thing we learned this last chapter. 24, 32, 40. Oh, I hit it, 32. So 8 times 4 gives me 32. So now I know that 4 belongs here. Now I know that 4 belongs here. But I'm going back to 3,200. Aha. So that would mean I could take my 4 and add 2 zeros, right? Because I had the 3,200, 2 zeros. Let's see if that makes sense. Now I would need to do 8 times 4, which gives me 32, and add on 1020. Aha! Eureka, as we would say. Okay, my friends, that's it, my nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. I hope this was helpful and helps you to get through your homework. Zero math trick. Hey, the whole goal of this is so we can start doing some of this math mentally in our head and cut down and make us more efficient. Have fun.